All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for that delayed smattering of applause. I appreciate it. I'm Mark, your humble host,
Mark Thompson.
And I am excited to be here. Very excited also for the return of John Rothmann today, everyone. Yeah.
What?
John is a sage, an analyst, a professor, talk show host. He's many things to many people. And he has a big following here. He will join us bottom of the hour. Kelly Malloy, first in to the Super Sticker game. We are live on YouTube right now.
Big shout out.
So you're probably listening to this or watching this in replay, which is totally cool. But those who are live are jumping in with some contributions to keep the show going, which is always important. And Kelly Malloy among those who is a regular supporter. We had a couple of after-hours supporters too, which is a very cool thing. And I will thank them and give them special shout-outs.
Big shout out.
Yes, big shout-outs as the day continues. Another day in the United States of guns. Yeah, breaking story. And we will update that as well next. And as I look through everything, there are some stories related to the coming election. Election day is 62 days away, I believe, something along those lines. And people are already, I think there is already voting going on, or it begins in a couple of days, I think, actually.
Yes, that's true.
But now to the breaker. Kim will have more on this, but, again, in this United States of guns, with guns insanely available to those who have grievances, issues, hormones. I mention that because high school is filled with all of those things. The dejected, angry teen who decides to go into school and settle whatever score, either with people with whom he, and it's typically a he, has an issue with, or just to shoot up the place, usually taking out mostly innocent victims, meaning people who he had no beef with, but who he now is proving on some bizarre madness level that he's relevant. I am somebody. Watch, I'll show you. The commonality of the teen experience is so filled with problems and issues and crises that you put a gun in the hands of those people, of those teens who are experiencing so many of the things that all of us can relate to, having gone through it as teens, and you invite the kind of slaughter and massacre that we see on a regular basis in America. It's disgusting. And the kind of pretzel logic that one has to go through as a politician to in any way overlook what is the clear problem in America, which sets us apart from other developed nations, the availability of firearms. To overlook that as the issue is to show a kind of immoral blindness, in my view, toward this growing problem. But it is the United States of guns, and that's where we live, and this is going to be a thing for the foreseeable future.
As someone who sent her 15-year-old daughter off to high school this morning, I feel it. You don't know. It's just the horrible luck of the draw that it happened there instead of here.
That's right.
Because it could have easily been any other place. It could have easily been my kid. And right now there are 4 moms in Georgia and 30 more who are rushing to the hospital to see how badly injured their kids are. And it's just, I mean, it could have been my kid. It is my kid. right? Because we all are in this together. This
Sure.
is awful. This happened in Appalachia, at Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia. And it happened right as the classes got underway today at that high school, right in the morning when everyone was arriving. Really sad.
Mike says Georgia has some of the loosest gun laws.
Ugh.
I was a sophomore, says Kelly Malloy, in high school when Columbine happened. I
Oh,
always
Kelly.
worried it would happen at my school when I was
Yeah.
there.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Pretzel Logic, great album by Steely Dan. Thank you for taking me out of my Santi. Thank you for taking me out of my my sadness about this this latest development. Welcome back, John Rothmann, says Pamela. Yeah, big shout out to Pamela and to Rothman for being
Big
here.
shout out.
Yeah, finally, Rothman's worth a $5 super chat. You know, I don't like to put a price tag on people's appearances, but if I had to, I'd say $5 is so far what Rothman's brought into the show, which is so I actually can, with specificity, assign a dollar value to the great John Rothman. Yeah, his greatness now can be monetized, which is the most exciting thing. It's like America. Like if you're not monetizing it, then it ain't happening. You know, it's what they say. If you didn't get if it's not on Instagram or whatever, if it's not on social media, it didn't happen. You know what I mean? If you didn't get a picture, it didn't happen.
Picks
I think that's the
didn't
thing
happen.
that they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what they say, Kim? What is the line? If it didn't
Picks or it didn't happen.
a picture, it didn't happen. Very good. Thank you. All right.
I'm very
all
impressed,
right.
Kim. That was very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Kim.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kim, once in a while, she really comes through with something. It's
Yeah, sometimes.
sometimes it's a long while, but
What?
I'm
what?
just saying. I am.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, listen. Let me get you into a couple of things that are happening. Can I just mention this because the commish is here, Albert is here, and then I will get in. This actually overlaps with a story we were going to do and have been doing anyway. Commish, welcome back,
Albert, thank you.
I am always excited to have you in. You're a younger guy with a fresh outlook. The world's ahead of you. You don't have all the encumbrances of of kids and of a spouse and some mortgage payment, and you don't have all of that. You live life with a sense of what am I going to do this weekend? What trip am I going to plan? Who am I getting together with to drink a beer or sake or whatever something? We're going to go have barbecue. That's your life, Albert. You live in the freedom of youth. I live in the doom loop of old age. You see, it's totally different. And people say you're such a pessimist. Of course I am. I've lived the decades. And so, Albert, you bring balance to our ticket. You know, we talk about the balance that Waltz brought to Kamala Harris. You bring balance here, Albert. You are the youthful
Never been anything like this.
exuberance that I think will fuel this show into the future. And thank you for your vote. Thank you, everybody.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, Albert, this bizarre story that went down in San Francisco, it's a story of violence. It's a story of firearms. It's the very stuff that we were confronting today in that school. And we'll continue to watch that. And Kim is going to update bottom of the hour. But it takes out a 49er, a major superstar player, to be for the 49ers. Can you tell us the situation where that sits and what is likely the outcome?
Ricky Pearsall is a first-round draft pick of the last year, and we expected him to play a huge role this season. And the 17, we have law and disorder, so maybe we could get into details then. But it's just really bad press, of course, again, for San Francisco. I can't wait for Fox News to talk all about this. But the 17-year-old suspect is charged. So, and they're going to try to charge the suspect as an adult. And this was a 17-year-old attempted robbery over, I think, his Rolex watch in Union Square in San Francisco.
Yeah, apparently the 17-year-old had been stalking for that Rolex watch, right? Mm-hmm. And they're looking at the just quickly, and we'll move on. But I did want to say, because the commission's here, So who is this guy who was hit? Can you tell everybody? Because you are the commish.
Yeah, Ricky Pearsall here. I have a picture.
He's a star. I mean, he was to have been a star right out of the gate, right?
Yeah, and there was footage of him practicing yesterday. So things are it sounds horrible, and it is horrible, but he's miraculously out and about, and he's still scheduled to miss the first 4 games of the season. But the fact that he's on the field already is a good sign, and I'm glad.
Do you think it's because God is a Niners fan, Albert? Do you think that is what's going
No,
on?
because we had to survive the past few seasons losing to the Chiefs, and just the
that's right.
overall-
Oh, I forgot.
yeah,
God's a
just overall
Chiefs fan.
frustration, being close to
Right.
winning a Super Bowl, but never really. So I don't think so.
Yeah. Plus,
But on his side.
if God were really a Niners fan, he wouldn't have let the guy get shot, right? So I'm
Yeah.
just
What?
Yeah, I'm just.
Jimmy G would still be on the team if God was on our side because he would have won that Super Bowl. So.
Oh, sure. Of course, you're right. Yeah. Probably God doesn't want to stack it too much, make it look like he's really, you know what I'm saying? Makes it kind of
He
look
probably
even.
assumed like mid to late 80s into the early 90s. He's like, we gave them enough.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. You have to do that arithmetic
Cowboys
too.
turd.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Commish. I wanted to get that story, so thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The Justice Department is accusing Russia of trying to influence the 2024 U.S. presidential election. This is not about the 2020 election. It's about this election that we are in the middle of the campaign season for.
Here we go again.
Attorney General Merrick Garland, the weakest attorney general that one could possibly dream up to represent this administration's Justice Department, a man who I have utter disdain for, detailed the Russian campaign to interfere with the election. This doesn't mean that stuff that comes out of the Justice Department and out of his world isn't legit. You know why I have disdain for Attorney General Merrick Garland. It has to do with the delay in bringing any charges to bear on a lawless president and a president who was so completely and openly and manifestly corrupt that you had no excuse for not investigating and charging immediately. But Garland didn't do that. That's the reason for my disdain. He waited, and now because he waited, the clock killer that is the Trump legal team is able to allow the former president to essentially run out the clock and very, very probably escape justice completely. Anyway, Garland said on this Russian influence of the 2024 election that 2 Russian employees of the Russian state media outlet RT have been charged with money laundering and violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act. You probably are thinking, well, the Foreign Agents Registration, where have I heard that in the last day? You heard it in the state of New York is where you heard it. Because in the governor's office there are now, we know, Chinese operatives that were charged. And again, these are people working in the governor's office. They were fired some time ago, but not a long time ago. I think they were just fired about a month ago. And this team in the governor's office of the state of New York, they were able to limit access to various major political players in New York as a result of their position within the governor's office, and they limited that on behalf of China. Garland said 2 Russian employees of the Russian state media outlet RT have been charged with money laundering and violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act. He also noted an effort to use websites set up to mimic mainstream U.S. news outlets like the Washington Post and Fox News to spread propaganda stories. This all comes after the U.S. accused Iran of attempting to hack both the Trump and Biden-Harris campaign last month. So that's where the Justice Department stands this morning. They just released this announcement, and they are formally accusing Russia of trying to influence the U.S. presidential election. The last point about Iran, if I can just give me 45 seconds on that, it's amazing to me that the Wikipedia drip of information as a result of a hack into Democratic computers, that is to say, those associated with the election of the attempted ascendance to the presidency of Hillary Clinton. They were basically, when she was candidate, they broke into her. It was Podesta who was her head campaign chief. So they broke into his computer because he stupidly, clicked on some phishing software. And in essence, and I know this is taking longer than 45 seconds, but in essence, he then revealed a treasure trove of stuff. Unwittingly, they got into a lot of stuff. And that stuff all came out through WikiLeaks. And not only that, and this brings up the distinction, the press ran with it. You saw it everywhere. The emails from Podesta to everyone on the Hillary Clinton campaign, including Hillary. What should we emphasize? What should be our slogan? I mean, it was that granular. That stuff was carried by the media. Well, Iran just did the same thing to the Trump campaign. But you haven't seen anything in the media about it.
Media
You saw it
outlets
reported.
decided not to carry it. Yeah, they said
Exactly.
no.
It was a conscious decision not to carry that stuff. We'll get Rothman's reaction, but definitely note that the media is treating this much differently than the media treated Hillary Clinton and the Democrats back in 2016. Meantime, it's true. The $10 million story is not quite going away. House Democrats now are asking Donald Trump directly, did you accept $10 million from Egypt in 2017? Democratic leaders on the House Oversight Committee released a letter yesterday asking former President Donald Trump if he ever illegally received money from the government of Egypt.
No, I didn't receive any money, no.
And whether money, I was the cleanest, I think I'm the most honest in all of, never, I don't even know where Egypt is. I don't know where right?
I mean, imagine him actually answering the question honestly, right?
Yeah, right. I don't know what you're supposed to, it's yeah. In any case, they wrote this letter and delivered this letter and this communication, I think, to be on the record more than anything else. Mm-hmm. But the question was, have you ever illegally received money from the government of Egypt, and whether money from Cairo played a role in a $10 million infusion into the 2016 run for president. Again, we've talked about this. David K. Johnston has commented on it. And just to remind you, it essentially went like this. This is according to very well-sourced stuff from Carol Leonnig at the Washington Post. The money was, it was loaned to, it went into the campaign. Trump spent the $10 million, wrote the check for the $10 million to his own campaign, and then the campaign paid him back with $10 million that you then have because the Egyptians put that money into the campaign coffers of Donald Trump, and so he was repaid by the Egyptians, if you want to think of it that way. But there was a middleman. It was washed by his own campaign people. It's an extraordinary thing. It's wildly illegal. You can see how corrupt it is. So when they called him out on this, and here's what they said, surely, this is a quote, you would agree that the American people deserve to know whether a former president and a current candidate for president took an illegal campaign contribution from a brutal foreign dictator. Accordingly, we request that you immediately provide the committee with information and documents necessary to assure the committee and the American public that you never, directly or indirectly, politically or personally, received any fund from the Egyptian president or government. So, as a practical matter, the use of the word request was super relevant because there's no legal authority to get this information that they ask, right? The House can ask for that, but they don't have the legal authority to compel the producing these documents or this evidence.
If you lie to them, is it, like you could be convicted of lying to Congress, that type of thing?
Well, the Republicans in the House since they control the House, they could subpoena it.
Oh.
And then if you don't provide it, you are breaking the law.
Yeah.
But the Democrats, as the minority party in the House,
There's
they
no
can't
teeth.
compel it.
Yeah.
It's not a story that's going away, but I also feel as though it's a story that's not landing on a lot of radar right now, particularly in this sort of noisy political season toward the end of the campaign season. Everything has to make a lot of noise to cut through. So we're looking for sound bites, interviews with whomever. And we showed a little bit of that Mark Levin interview with Donald Trump. Mark Levin is such a hack for Trump. I mean, you know, it was as though he wanted to give Trump a back rub while he was asking him questions that essentially answered themselves. They're, these flowery, totally sycophantic questions. I mean, he, as I told you yesterday, I think he absolutely laps Sean Hannity as a total kiss ass when it comes to Donald Trump. And now Hannity has the respect of Trump, and as you know, was speaking with Trump daily when Trump was president. So Sean Hannity was essentially not only the most powerful figure probably in terms of a political talking head on television, but he was also a powerful figure within the Trump administration. He was essentially an advisor. So don't get me wrong, Hannity is powerful. But when it comes to the kiss-up Olympics, those kissing up to Donald Trump, I'm submitting Mark Levin is the gold medalist in a runaway. Now, Albert, let's get to the election before I bring on John Rothmann. Bring me, damn it, Albert, welcome back. Bring me some election news. I want to see the map. I want to see the states. I want to see how close things are. Bring it to me, Albert. Bring it. Don't worry. This guy is my guy. David Chalian, he's political director at CNN. Roll it, Albert. Where do we sit?
Albert, thank you.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. And as you noted here, we're seeing Harris with slight leads in Michigan and Wisconsin. And so instead of our focus for the next 62 days just being on those blue wall states, I really think you got to go down the side of the East Coast. That Pennsylvania, Georgia, we'll see. We don't have North Carolina in this set of polling. If that is acting like Georgia, those states may be the ones to determine. And it's because, as you noted, Donald Trump has to have everything, just hold everything he had in 20, flip Pennsylvania and Georgia, he's the president again. And so if Harris can win one of those states, that's a huge block that she puts up in the path for Donald Trump and sets her potentially on a course. The other thing I would note, the motivation obviously is key, and that is what we've seen over the last, since July 21st, when Joe Biden stepped off the stage here, just the snapback into contention. But it hasn't catapulted Harris into some commanding position in this race. What it has done is make this race extraordinarily competitive and tight again. And I just see you see that across this. I would also note, and I know you have these numbers, put up the gender gap.
Yeah.
I think this is fascinating. If you look at likely female voters across these states, you see enormous margins for Harris there. I mean, look, in Wisconsin, that's
55% is a landslide in our closely divided
so she's
politics.
Yeah, but don't get too excited.
She's plus 16.
Wait on
She's,
this.
plus 15. Those
David
are
Look at when they show the other.
Sorry.
Everybody, no, this is like an awesome feat. We love
But
it.
show the other side, because among likely
Exactly.
male voters, it's big advantage Trump. This is what we mean by the gap. When we say gender gap, it's not just the advantage among female voters for a Democrat. It's the difference between the female voter advantage among Democrats and the male voter advantage among Republicans. And you see what a big advantage that is for Trump among male voters. And that, to me, is going to be one of the definitional things when we are on election night looking at the results.
Well,
Okay, thank you, Albert. I thought that was good, particularly, I get the gender gap thing. That really isn't a surprise, although certainly the enthusiasm with which Kamala Harris will be greeted by particularly women is terrific to see. And everybody should have a stake in women having reproductive freedoms. And because this crazy court, it's a radical, rebellious court. I mean, the real radicalism in America right now is being handled by judges, I'd suggest. But anyway, to the point, that's encouraging, but it's not super surprising. I thought what was interesting and what I really would love to talk about in the days ahead, and we'll talk to Rothmann about it, bottom of the hour, now in just a couple of minutes, is the way that Pennsylvania is being contested and Georgia's being contested. Georgia is a really tough climb for Kamala Harris, but she may be able to make that climb, for all the reasons noted. You have the disenfranchisement of voters in Georgia that's taken to high art, as we've said before. There is a problem with that. You not only have to get out the vote, you have to make sure that the vote you get out is actually counted. In Pennsylvania, that is a critical state for her. It's not the only way she can win, but it's almost the only way. If she could win Pennsylvania, as was noted in that piece, it's a huge block as well against Trump winning. Pennsylvania may be the crown jewel. I mean, you need Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin are really the big three, right? If Kamala Harris could win those three, that's the presidency. Whereas I thought what was interesting there was he was saying, hey, Trump's going to likely hang on to all these states that he won in the last go-round. And now it comes down to the state of Georgia, state of Pennsylvania. Again, I want to talk to Rothmann about it, but I'm concerned about Pennsylvania. That might be the way to put it. I'm concerned about it. And they're campaigning like hell there. I mean, but both sides are campaigning like hell. So we'll see. But I'd say, look, we know it. It's a dead heat. It's crazy. You may look at it and go, how can it be so close? I mean, the guy is just, he's unhinged. He's not really committed to being president. He's this carnival barker promoter guy who branded himself as a great businessman with the help of Mark Burnett. How can he have so effectively bamboozled so many people in America? He is not informed by any kind of understanding of anything. He says he doesn't need to be briefed on anything. He didn't read briefing materials when he was president, and he won't read them again. He's completely into himself. He only cares about building up himself. He's so easily manipulated by foreign leaders and by those around him by simple flattery. They play him like a violin, and somehow he talks to the American people about how tough he is in negotiations with America's adversaries. How can that guy be tracking in a dead heat election with somebody who's clearly competent? Again, you can say what you want about Kamala Harris. Maybe she's too liberal for you. I don't know what that means. You can put some specifics on it, but her competence cannot be in question. She is a studied, competent person who's reflected that competence in the ways she's risen in American political life and public service. I mean, you can't do that with smoke and mirrors. So this is the country we live in.
I made a mistake of commenting on a political thread on Facebook. I really try to keep scrolling, but sometimes you just get sucked in. And one of the things the Trumpers were saying in response was, Kamala Harris isn't qualified. She's just not ready to be president. And that's what they're saying. That's one of the things. They're questioning her readiness to serve. They're questioning whether or not she is competent. And I mean,
to be fair, she has never hosted a game show on television, a reality show.
She hasn't. This is true. And I mean, that's, that's a big thing. You could, that means you're rising to the top of the list already.
Have a hit show on TV like Trump did, and then get back to us about being president. What did you write, though, Kim?
I wrote a lot of things that I probably ought not to have, because it just stirs the pot, and you forget that you can't talk to these people.
No,
because they're so,
no, you cannot.
Like, their mind is already Fox Newsified, and they're gone.
You unleashed angry Kim, didn't you?
Kim, how are you?
You did.
No, I try to be reasonable, but
I blame you.
Okay, well,
yeah.
But you wrote things, and now you have people. Now you're in a back and forth with people. I don't even know how to log on to Facebook.
I stopped looking.
Yeah, I'm going to get active on Facebook, though, because
oh, that's
I think that's where our listeners are.
We have a new page developed by Wes, who is a listener viewer, and it's the Mark Thompson Show discussion forum on Facebook. Where after the show, if you've heard something that you want to keep talking about, you can go there and continue the discussion.
Wow.
Yes, you can go and
That's
join
very
that page.
exciting. Well, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
My God.
There's never been anything like this.
I don't think so. I'm very excited. Wow.
It's a friendly place where you can talk about politics.
I see.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever
new.
seen.
We don't know how friendly it'll be.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
It might get unfriendly, Kim, is the point. I mean, it can happen.
I've never seen anything like it.
All right. Well, I will check it out on Facebook. All right. Now, what do you want to do? I've got Rothmann in the green room. He is a brilliant man. He is someone who's been waiting weeks to get back on this show.
I think we have to
told
bring him in.
me, or maybe I just heard this, people are saying that he wanted to come back early from his vacation just to do our show, which is
I believe it.
I know.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
It's a hot ticket. People are
I don't
dying
blame
to get
him.
in here. Yeah.
I don't blame him, you know.
Yeah.
No one cares about, what you have to say when you're on the Champs-Élysées or wherever he was. He's in France somewhere, right? Can I bring him on now?
Yeah,
yes, and we'll have a supersized news at the top of the next hour.
I love it. I love it. Okay.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Everybody, smash the like button if you've never been here before on YouTube. That is the way to help us. It costs you nothing. Smash it like a boss, damn it. Smash it. It comes to scholarly work around politics, around international issues, Middle East. The professor is the guy who sheds light on many things. You may agree, you may disagree, but you have to respect the great way he says it all. Our former colleague at KGO, he's back from vacation, John Rothmann.
Well, thank you, Mark. I'm so glad to be back. I've been straining at the reins to get back.
We love your energy, John Rothmann. Where were you? In Europe, right?
We were in the Baltic. So
Uh-huh.
I did a week in Amsterdam, and then we took a cruise, which took us to Estonia, to Poland, to Germany.
Wow.
It was a fascinating, we had a wonderful time in Denmark. It was good.
Yeah.
Where
are my weed smokers at?
I don't know. Is weed legal in Denmark? It is, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And let me tell you what they're doing in Denmark. I talked about this on the Voice of San Francisco. They're moving the red light district.
Wow.
And they're moving it because, well, it's in a great location. They want to use it for business.
I
So
see.
they're moving to a different part of town.
Yeah.
So I say, why can't we do that here in San Francisco? Just take Cap Street and move it somewhere else.
It is wild. They've had that red light district. It's massively famous internationally.
You know, we walked through it, and I wanted a picture taken with two women of the night, and they won't allow it. You're not allowed to do it. Their privacy is more important than my publicity.
I see. So you said, then I'll just have a number 5, whatever.
What?
You see what that is? A number 5.
No, but it was amazing.
You
Some
know what
guy-
I meant, Albert. Thank you.
Somebody
Yeah.
opened the door, and some guys went in, and the whole street started cheering. And I said, what are they cheering? They said, John, don't you understand what's going on here? And of course, the naive innocent that I am, I had no idea.
Well, I am wham bam. Rothmann does Amsterdam. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, B.A. Ware. Wow.
You know, we used to say there was the state song, and it was Amster, naughty word.
I see. Yeah. Well, I'm interested in your take on many things, John Rothmann. I'm going to start with what's happening in the presidential race, which is now in a place where polling is relevant. But I also think we're in a dead heat situation. Clearly, the one thing I would say to you, and then I really will be quiet and just let you speak, is that if you look at trends, if you're concerned with trending, which maybe is something to focus on or at least take note of, certainly the trend line favors Kamala Harris. Now you.
I agree. It was fascinating in Europe. People don't understand America. How can you vote for Donald Trump? People just don't get it. And I tried to explain, but even my explanations, frankly, were inadequate. So my sense is Harris is going to win. But the most critical moment will be when we appear together next Wednesday. because the debate is Tuesday night. And Mark, that may be the most significant moment in the campaign between Harris and Donald Trump. But all I can tell you is, if you go, as I did, to Estonia, and you talk to people in Estonia, which I did, I really try to listen to what people have to say. They're terrified that if Trump is elected president of the United States, America will withdraw from NATO, that Eastern Europe will be gone. And look what's happening in Ukraine, for God's sake. Why aren't we screaming as loudly as we can what the Russians are doing now, and the Ukrainians are hitting back, and the tensions are escalating, and nobody reported that the Russian foreign minister said this could lead to a nuclear war. Well, I hope it doesn't lead to a nuclear war, but I'm scared of what we are not confronting in America. If I were in charge of that debate next week, I'd be talking about foreign policy. I'd be talking about Ukraine. I'd be talking about NATO. I'd be talking about Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. I'd be talking about Poland. We were in Poland. We were in Gdansk, the place where solidarity began. They're scared out of their wits. They think we have no controls on Putin, and no one's talking about it. I come back here, and I've been back 4 days and sort of recovering from jet lag, a little bit of a cold, and I'm listening to the discussions, and I'm underwhelmed.
Well,
what can I tell you?
I would say two things about that. First of all, of course, coming from the Baltics and coming from that area of the world, you are going to carry with you a little bit of that orientation into the conversation, and that's a good thing. But by the same token, that's not the perspective that Americans naturally, reflexively assume. They are about the economy. They're about domestic policy primarily. In fact, I think if you ask most Americans about the Baltic region, they wouldn't really know what you're talking about. I don't mean that as a put down. I mean that, look, they're busy with their lives in certain ways. Whenever I say this kind of thing, I get in the chat, what are you talking about, Mark? People have a right, have to, as informed citizens, know these things. Yeah, they do and they don't. The country's made up of a whole range of people who are informed at different levels. Anyway, to the point. Here, it's about domestic policy primarily. You're right. I mean, that international policy, and with a hot war going on in Ukraine, it probably should weigh in at the same level. But it's interesting from a Democrat-Republican standpoint. Do you go for the Democrat? Do you go for the Republican? Ukraine is an interesting issue. How do you see it from a political calculus standpoint shaking out in terms of, do you go with the Democrat, do you go with the Republican on the issue of Ukraine?
Ukraine isn't even on the map in American political discussion. It should be, and voters of Eastern European descent in the Midwest should have a huge impact. They may in Michigan. People don't understand there's a large Eastern European population, and that's going to be interesting. Let me quickly, I wish I had an answer, but talk for a minute about what's going on in the Middle East. The Justice Department yesterday issued indictments against leaders of Hamas. What took them so long? And I think that is a real question. There is no doubt that the Middle East is a very tough issue because, frankly, Hamas is the obstacle. And interestingly enough, all the demonstrations in Israel demanding Netanyahu's removal, the only point I make is if Netanyahu vanished tomorrow, the problem would still be there. Hamas is not going away.
But 2 points. Just on the first thing, it's not really that important, but let me just make the point. If you want to find something that doesn't matter to voters, you just mentioned it, which is not the Middle East problem. That matters a lot. It's the Justice Department naming Hamas in some kind of legal action. That is absolutely immaterial to most voters. Now, that said, what you have
except that
on,
Americans were killed. And that is the argument they're making, that we as Americans have an obligation to protect whoever our people are. And that is the reason why the indictment came down.
Thank you. I mean, thank you. I get it. So that is relevant from that standpoint. I guess what I'm saying is that it just it hasn't achieved a kind of altitude that maybe it should in the American political discourse. But what I did want to mention is the Middle East, which is quite the opposite. That entire conflict has captured a lot of attention. Schools are coming back in, John, as you know, college campuses roiling with all of these protests and encampments and all the rest. And they've changed even school policy as to, what they'll tolerate, what they won't.
And school presidents. The president of Colombia had to resign.
Sure. So when you talk about Israel, because on this you have some insight, it is clear, based on the fact that the streets of Israel are filled with protesters against Netanyahu, that they don't necessarily agree that the peace would be at hand, or at least a ceasefire would be at hand, had you Hamas made a deal. They feel had you made a deal, Netanyahu, peace would be at hand. The often cited situation right now is these hostages who were just murdered in cold blood, they would be alive had Netanyahu made the deal with Hamas. Didn't you get some of that from the people that you're in touch with?
Sure, but the simple truth is Hamas wants to kill all the hostages. They've said it again. You're not dealing with rational people. Hamas is a terrorist organization.
But
their goal is
wouldn't a deal with Hamas, some kind of ceasefire, have at least saved those sweet souls that were killed?
I don't know. Nobody knows. Those sweet souls, as you refer to them, have been prisoners, hostages, tortured, sexually mutilated, as we know. So I don't have a kind word for it. Look, the most interesting thing is they say, well, they're trying to cut a peace deal. This is not a peace deal. This is a deal to try to save the lives of Americans and Israelis and Jews. And it's a tragedy. And there is no answer because Hamas remains firmly committed to the destruction of Israel and, frankly, to the destruction of Jews. And as long as they have that attitude, no matter what deal you cut, you're still going to have the same problem. It's sort of like the school shootings that you talked about with Kim at the very opening. Look, the headline of the Chronicle this morning, shooting complicates SF mayoral campaign. Well, what do you expect when you have guns completely loose? It has nothing to do with who is mayor of San Francisco. And I think that one of the most unbelievably difficult things to deal with is we have to have somebody to blame, Mark. Whether it's Netanyahu or Hamas or a shooter with a gun, we in the media, and I think in general, want to know who's responsible. And unfortunately, for a lot of these questions, there are no real answers. I don't think a shooter in Union Square, who is after a Rolex, not the personality who was shot, gives a tinker's damn one way or the other. May I ask you a question? Why is it that the media and the politicians aren't talking about the shooters and the shooting? Why aren't they talking about gun control or at least background checks or something? I listened to Kim, whose daughter, 15 years old, was back at high school. Kim, you're right. It's not just your daughter. It's all of our daughters, all of our sons. And what do we hear? A deafening silence, except you will hear Republicans say, well, this is such a sensitive moment. You can't raise the issue of guns now. Well, if not now, when?
You mentioned the blame and how people are looking for someone to blame. And this is, though asinine, this is what's happening on your channel, Fox News. They say,
excuse me, whose channel?
You're the one that watches it. I don't know.
You're the one who always says, my doctor says I have trouble with blood pressure, so I watch the Fox News.
Let me tell you, on the cruise, there was no CNN. There was only MSNBC or Fox. MSNBC did such a poor job, I had to watch Fox. I was bouncing off the walls.
Well, they say today that Kamala Harris, this is in regards to the shooting of the 49er, Ricky Pearsall. They said Kamala Harris was the California Attorney General when Prop 47 passed. She wrote the title and summary for that proposition. And they say, is it fair to ask her about the legacy that is left behind in California, somehow putting the blame on Kamala Harris for what happened to this player? Yeah.
You know, I listen, I blame Mark Thompson for everything. I can do that with a clear conscience. It may not be true, but I can do it.
Sure.
Thompson, party of four.
Yeah, I know you're absolutely right. So you're saying in a political season, blame Kamala Harris, blame your opponent for everything, every ill in all the world.
That's right. And that's what's going to happen. And that applies in this shooting today in Georgia. No one is going to point the finger, as it ought to be pointed, at the fact that we have no real controls on guns. We don't even have required background checks. It's astounding to me. And I say it with all the indignation that I can muster. But this is whether or not, and it's interesting, whether or not a week from last night, gun violence will become an election issue. And how will Donald Trump deal with it? But it's the same thing. The one thing I learned on this trip was very interesting, had to do with a woman's reproductive rights. Donald Trump has been everywhere on reproductive rights. He's been for a woman's right, opposed a woman's right, for. The man is completely, it seems, limitless in his ambiguity and political expediency.
Well, Trump is not underpinned by any political philosophy whatsoever. He just wants to get elected, and he'll say to whatever constituency he's speaking before,
you're right,
whatever they want to hear. So you're absolutely right.
So
just on the gun, the one distinction I would make, and because of course, you're completely right, as we've said, you just assign blame to your political opponent, regardless of what the issue is. But the one difference here, and it's a remarkable one, is kind of what Kim was saying, which is, and Fox News Channel, I mean, they're a substantial...
No, it's Fox. It's not news. Fox and news is an oxymoron.
Yeah, I say Fox News Channel because Fox is where I used to work, and they have The Simpsons, and they have a bunch of other shows that you like to watch, and that's the Fox that I think of. But Fox News Channel, even if it is in quotes news, the group there does the dirty work for you. They do the blaming. So that's what Kim was saying. They blame Kamala Harris.
Yes,
you don't need to blame Kamala Harris because Fox will do it for you. It's a tremendous propaganda instrument, Fox News, for the right.
It's true. And the thing that stunned me, because it was Fox or MSNBC or BBC, by the way, which BBC was pretty good. I enjoyed their coverage. MSNBC on these on the ship was completely inadequate in every way. And I don't know why CNN wasn't there, or for that matter, ABC, CBS, NBC, nothing. One of the things, Mark, that you and I are going to have to monitor is I'm convinced that how this election turns out will basically depend on what media you watch. If you watch Fox, you believe with perfect faith. And interestingly enough, on this trip, I talked to a lot of people. I learn more when I talk with people than at people. And what I learned, I was with a lovely couple. They believe with perfect faith everything they hear on Fox. And even when I pointed out errors, or that Fox had to apologize, or that Fox had lost a major lawsuit, almost $1 billion, made absolutely no impression. And that is, to me, a real tragedy in American politics.
Well, it has certainly changed the nature of American politics in scary ways. And when I hear the story about the couple who believes everything, yeah, it's all very scary. I wanted to share a couple of comments with you, John Rothmann. You are a folk hero, as you know, within our group. And Julie says, Tinker's Dam, so good, reminds me of my daddy. Remember you say, I don't give a Tinker's damn. That's like something like out of a Jimmy Stewart movie. I don't give a Tinker's damn who they are.
It's like warming. It's like warming the cockles of your heart.
Thank you. Yeah, these
you
are
can't
all those
use that
lines.
Either.
They are going away. Tinker's Dam is going away. Glad you could bring it back to life for a moment here. Let me just see. I wish I had more for the show. And John Rothmann says Pamela Kirby. John Rothmann is highly valued. big vet bill recently. I see. That's what she's saying. Otherwise, she would have given even more to the show. Wow. $5 super
Big shout out.
chat from her. Thank you.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
Pamela.
Thank you
and I
very
hope your
much.
vet situation. I'm looking to see if there's anything else you need to comment on. Bring back the Gaza. Here we go. This is from Brian.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Brian. Thank you for an $18 super chat. The 18, he says, speaks to life. Welcome back, John. We missed you. The life you bring to our Wednesdays is precious. Thank you, MT and KM, Tony and Albert. Bring back the Gaza hostages now with lots of love. Brian. Yeah.
May I just say, I didn't know this, but the young American who was killed in this last round, my niece was his pre-kindergarten teacher in the East Bay. And
Wow.
there was an outpouring of affection and love. These are not abstracts. These are real people. And so I just wanted to point that out quickly.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right to do it, too, because too often it's skipped over. They just become a number of hostages. I agree with John Rothmann as to what media you listen to, and for the most part, nobody is doing regular TV these days. Instead, it's all internet. So then basically what you have is Fox or CNN or MSNBC. That's from Cheryl, and that's true within the mainstream way in which television is delivered. Increasingly, there are alternative outlets because, as you said, nobody is doing regular TV these days. I think that's a decent point. John, in addition to the Fox thing, which you were saying has sort of changed things, the alternative media now has a much greater influence on the political discourse than they used to have. I'm talking about platforms like this one, YouTube or podcasts, etc. People.
TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok's immense. TikTok is immense. Yeah. So things are changing, and one's ability to manage some of these information streams changes with it.
And that's why the Russian interference case, which was discussed earlier on the Mark Thompson program, is so critical. The Russians had a huge impact in 2016, and they intend to have a huge influence in this election. And their vehicle is the use of the new media. And I don't know what the impact will be now. I can tell you in 2016, we played on KGO some of the misinformation that was put out by the Russians. I'm intrigued by the fact that this is being raised as an issue now. And there's no doubt who the Russians are for.
It's funny about that because Trump says he's very tough on the Russians.
Where?
Yeah.
How? I haven't seen it.
He was just saying it in his stump speech and also on his, I don't know what you'd call that, conversation with Lex Friedman and Mark Levin. So
I listened to the Mark Levin interview. These are shills. This is not legitimate journalism. Mark, on your program or my program, we ask tougher questions. I had no problem asking a tough question. Do you know that Mark Levin is the guy who started this whole thing about Kamala Harris being a communist? What does Donald Trump now say? Comrade Kamala.
Right.
Comrade Kamala. It's unbelievable that that's allowed.
It's interesting. This is, I like this, Peter, you're right. Comment, please, on Elon Musk and X being used as online propaganda as well. This is a really good point. Elon Musk is an immensely powerful guy. We talk about it here. One of his powers is control of this platform, the social media platform X. And he is right out there with everything you're talking about, John. All the propaganda about communism, socialism, fascism, and he assigns it to Kamala Harris and the Democrats. His rhetoric is getting sharper and sharper. It's really intense. In fact, I have a tweet from this morning. I'll find it. But it's scary because he controls that platform and he can have the algorithm downplay any kind of opposing opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. This is a far cry from Colonel McCormick in Chicago or William Randolph Hearst, who were media moguls who controlled what people read and thought because there was diversity of opinion. Elon Musk is a horrifying figure to me not because he isn't smart, not because he doesn't make a lot of good points, but because Elon Musk has a monopoly and people listen to what he has to say. And frankly, a lot of what he has to say is pure nonsense. Did you hear the interview Musk did while I was on vacation with Donald Trump?
Yeah, it wasn't an interview. That was a conversation,
Yeah,
and it started with, "I support you. I'm supporting you with money, and I think you are the right choice for the future of America."
It's just terrible.
That's how he started the interview.
I know. It's not legitimate journalism. Whatever you
not.
say about what we did on KGO, and I'm very proud of almost 3 decades on that talk station, we invited a diversity of opinion. We had talk show hosts who were left, right, libertarian, off the wall. There was a real mixture of thought and ideas. And by the way, the Trumpists who enjoyed, I think, what I did on KGO, because I always gave them a chance to speak, gave them a rope to hang themselves, to be very honest with you. But we don't have that interplay. We don't have that dialogue. And I miss that in this campaign. And there's no balance in this campaign. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. But next Wednesday, we'll really analyze the Tuesday night debate. And I don't know who's going to win the debate because we don't know the ground rules, in fact. We don't know the way Donald Trump and Kamala Harris will respond to each other. Do you know that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have never been in the same room at the same time? They've never met each other personally. The first time they will meet will be on that stage. So there's a lot of interaction, a lot of interplay, which I'll be looking for. And may I say, Mark, I value what you do, and I urge people to support the Mark Thompson program, but I regret that commercial radio is completely absent, because can you imagine the field day you and I would have had with commentary on a KGO type station?
Oh, it would have been terrific. And what we did, I think, in a couple of instances when we all sat in on various major events like this one, yeah, it's a true a setback, and it's really, if I can just speak to a broader issue, but this is really the issue in America. And I see this in chat rooms, and I hear this on other shows when you talk about capitalism and failed capitalism and communism and all the rest. Guys, take all of that crap and all those labels, put them aside. You can tell just in the KGO example that John Rothmann gave. You had mergers like crazy and acquisitions like crazy by a big media company like Cumulus, okay? That was the company that owned KGO. And what that did was that reduced competition, it reduced quality, and you end up with decision-making that's associated with this station, KGO, which was this outpost for talk, free talk radio. You lose that ability to retain that station because it's just one more thing in their holdings, in their portfolio. And as a result, it's easy to get rid of Rothmann, Thompson, Thurston, et cetera, Nikki, and you essentially turn the station over to automated, syndicated programming that costs you nothing. You have a rev share with it, and so you end up getting rid of KGO and running a sports gambling station. What is my bigger point? This is the important thing, that it's not capitalism that is the problem. Capitalism, to me, is great. Capitalism produces competition. Capitalism has built-in incentives for people to perform and to provide services and all of these things at the highest levels. But corporatism, the merging of various businesses and companies, unfettered, unregulated, that is the undoing of America. And so you end up with this separation of those with a whole lot of money from those who really can't get a piece of the pie. That's been permitted and enabled by this corporatism. It started with Reagan, really, and it has been really unfurled through the decades.
And that's
dangerous. The problem with America.
It's a danger to democracy. And we all need to understand that. I dread, and I know that I'm supposed to be relatively nonpartisan in my analysis. I dread the thought of Donald Trump back in the White House, because I think our rights, our ability to communicate, all of that will be limited profoundly. And for those who say I am too extreme or too alarmist, I'm not nearly as extreme or as alarmist as I ought to be. And I say that respectfully. And the Republican Party, if Donald Trump loses, as I hope and pray he will have to go through the process of reevaluating, of reforming itself. It's not the first time the Republican Party has had to do that. Democratic Party had to do it as well. That process needs to begin not just for the sake of those parties, but for the sake of the American political system. And that, Mark, is my bottom line. And the one thing I'm grateful for, and I hope people do support the Mark Thompson program. And, I'm not compensated for what I do with Mark. This to me is this is an act. It's a very important act. But a Mark Thompson or a John Rothmann or a Nikki Maduro or a Kim McAllister, we can only flourish with the support of listeners who care as much as we do, and hope that our reach extends. And Mark, that's my pitch for people to support you. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I think you can also, in addition to financial support, which of course keeps the lights on, just share things that you've heard. Maybe it's the segment with Rothman, whatever. Share it on your social media, and that supports the show as well, because as we grow our footprint, we're able to sustain ourselves more easily. And
I have a friend in New York, Debbie, who listens regularly. And Debbie, if you're listening, I love you. What does she do? She posts this on her social media. And of course, the fact that she says, "And John, you're brilliant," is very acceptable in terms of the analysis.
Yeah. Right. Well, I hope she is indeed watching this show if she speaks to your brilliance. I think you're capable of brilliance, is the way I would put it. I don't think you're always brilliant.
And don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how much he insults me, I will be back again and again. Hey, Mark, I hope you will do another gathering, which I know.
Yeah, you missed the last one. You just missed our end of summer. We'll do one for the holidays, I think.
Oh, maybe you should do one before the election.
Well, we may do that. They're a lot of trouble to pull together, although they're really great. And we had a real good one. So not a bad thought. Maybe we do one end of October. You know what I mean? That's not a bad thought. See, when you say things like that, I think you're brilliant. So that's the...
What?
Okay.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, the abuse that a mere humble former radio talk show host takes from his colleague. But it's a pleasure.
Oh,
anything else today?
Oh my God! I know. I love my John Rothman. All right. No, we touched on the shooting in San Francisco of a major sports star, and what's happening in San Francisco and how the blame game is being played. We talked about Kamala Harris. We talked about the election. We talked about media. We talked about the Russia thing. We talked about the Middle East. The one thing I might ask you just to put a button on, I know it's hard, but maybe you can tell me what you think this state will come down to, is this Pennsylvania thing. Again, I'm not convinced, this is the reason I come back to it, I'm not convinced that Kamala Harris will win Pennsylvania. I know it's close. I see it as a far more problematic situation for her from an electoral standpoint than I might in other places. Can you speak to what is important in Pennsylvania?
The whole thing boils down to how many mistakes Donald Trump makes between now and the election. If Donald Trump continues to alienate voters, as I believe he does, if women understand what is at stake, if the Trump family is listened to, you just heard Fred Trump's comments about Donald Trump. If people listen, and I'm hoping that happens. By the way, in New Hampshire, the Republicans have stopped spending any money. They're not doing any media buys. They are conceding New Hampshire, which some thought was a swing state in a way, directly to Harris. Well, it's going to be a challenge. But I'll tell you one thing, Mark. If we were up and running in a radio station in Pennsylvania, the money would be pouring in for advertising. So that's the other thing. Maybe at some point we can do an analysis of the various ads. They're normally 30 seconds to a minute. And it's well worth listening to the ads, because that's what is really selling the product. And isn't it a shame? Remember, Joe McGinnis wrote a book called The Selling of the President, 1968. People should go back and read it simply to remember that, in a sense, I remember vividly Adlai Stevenson saying, "I don't want to be sold like a bar of soap," or And that's what we've done. And so this is going to be interesting as well, the advertising.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing, John, everything has to be communicated and marketed. Ideas have to be communicated and marketed. So, yeah, it is the selling of the presidency, I'd suggest, is when the shingle is out and they're open for business and it's pay to play. The selling of ideas, I think that's become more complicated. This for another time. But you do have to sell ideas. But I'd love to continue with this conversation your next go round.
I agree. And ladies and gentlemen, do support the Mark Thompson program. And Mark, anytime you need me, if I'm available, I'm always here for you and for Kim. And I want to thank you both for having me today.
We love you, John, and welcome home. John Rothmann, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, you know. What do I need to pay attention to, Albert? What do I need to pay attention to? Do you have it there? Or Kim? I'm anxious to just see this while I'm doing that. I'm doing this.
You have a lot of contributions to go through today.
Wow, I love
really
Edward
nice.
Lee.
Yeah.
Recurring theme, flash your cash. Get mugged, exactly. In San Francisco, it is true. Do not flash anything in any big city, by the way. It's not just San Francisco. I mean, this situation in San Francisco, though, just in general, is truly troubling. The FBI even have the serial numbers of the money, No Contendo says, on the Egyptian payoff, that must be. Wow, that's insane. By the way, they'd have the serial number of the transfer, most likely. I mean, I don't think they have the serial number of the cash, but I mean, if they do, please correct me. Scott Rittenberg, awesome. By the way, thank you. Big shout out on the serial number comment. And on this comment, Scott Rittenberg, big supporter of the show. So I was going to say, yes, Truth Social ads today. Good news for you. Let them play. Let them pay the Mark Thompson Show. And yes, it's ad. There's a weird thing that happens, and Scott Rittenberg has brought it up, and it is that because our show is a lot of politics and news, we get, I guess, a lot of these roll-ins that have to do with Truth Social or Donald Trump or whatever. So we don't control that, but this is why subscribers and views and things are important. We do get revenue that comes into the show based on those roll-ins and based on how many people watch them. So I can't tell you, and I'm not telling you, I am not telling you to watch them. I am just saying that Scott's not wrong, that, like, when you see more in the way of that kind of thing, it usually just means that the show is being sustained in part by some of that revenue that trickles in. No Contendo says when they say that Kamala Harris is not ready, in quotes, they mean too uppity. Passing your place, too uppity. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some of that really does inform their opinions. Because Democrats pushed constitutional carry, says No Contender. That was in relation to the firearm situation. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to get some of these super chats in during the time we're talking about the firearm situation, or when we're talking about the other stuff. I don't know what happens when you bring it in now. What am I supposed to do?
Why are you yelling?
All right. Edward Lee, are you and John really going to give her a pass for Prop 47? Furthermore, Mark and John bash Trump more than John Cobelt bashes George Gascon. John Cobelt is a talk show host in Southern California on KFI.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Edward Lee. Well, look, I would say two things. One, you're going to get a lot of Trump talk now. There's 2 months before the election, okay? I would be guilty of malpractice not to talk about Trump. Now, if you're saying that I should X-ray Kamala Harris more, great. We actually are going to X-ray Kamala Harris. The conversation we're going to have, when's the right-winger coming on, Kim? I'm trying to find it on my...
Jamie Miller. He'll be here this week. We'll be recording that interview, and we'll likely roll it next week.
Okay. Because then you'll hear some of what you want, I think, which is, I guess you want pushback on that. And what was the other thing that was in that chat?
Prop 47.
Prop 47. Prop 47, again, is the categorizing of certain crimes, essentially downgrading them so they're not as punishable. And the thinking is, well, you downgrade all these crimes, shoplifting and whatever else it might be, these are smash and grabs. And as a result, people get away with it, and there is no real repercussion as a result of what they've done. And you know where I am on law and order. I agree with that. I agree with that criticism, I think. So if you want to follow that trail of breadcrumbs back to Kamala Harris, I think it's a reasonable criticism, okay? Again, I don't know that she was the jihadist on Prop 47, but I think it's a reasonable criticism. I don't let her off the hook at all on that. If indeed the hook is there to, that's my... This is the...
came down right behind you.
It comes down right behind me. We've got to put some kind of attachment in there. This is how we need your contributions so we don't have to tape this up anymore. We can afford push pins. That's how bad it's gotten. Tom Gunn, my favorite gun. How about it with a 20?
Big shout out.
Thank you for a super sticker on the show. Wes Theory with
Big
a
shout
5. Loving that. Thank you, Tom and Wes. And then there was one before I just couldn't. Please never compare our beloved Mark to QAnon John of KFI, says Luis.
Big shout out.
Big shout. I actually love John Cobelt. I know our politics don't line up, but I really do love John Cobelt. So I don't call him any names. I think he's really a lot of fun. But I understand the politics can be an issue. But there was something else I wanted to. Somebody else said something in that string of them. Anyway, I hope I didn't mean to leave anybody out.
I clicked on it and then it went away. Sorry.
Okay. Well,
I blame you.
Well, you can blame me, Kim, but it sounds like you did it.
This is one. It was Mikaracha.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Racha. Mike Racha.
Mike Racha with a $5 monetized Rothman.
Big shout out.
Thank you. That's a true monetization of John Rothman. So, bravo. Well done. Thank you all. And keep it coming. We love you all. What's that?
It.
Yeah, smash it. Smash that smash it like a boss.
Mm-hmm.
So next week is the right winger, is what you're telling me. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I had a conversation with him yesterday, and he is really, really nice. He wrote this book about the most influential presidential speeches. He's really interesting to talk to. And then he started talking to me about election cheating and how it's possible that all the ways that Americans could cheat in elections and poll workers cheating. And I'm like, you sounded reasonable for a hot second, sir. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
That's often the way it is. In fact, that's the way it is. Even it's been mentioned.
Yeah.
With Cobelt. Cobelt and I can agree on a bunch of stuff, particularly on the law and order stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, we'll move into some area and I go, oh, whoa, buddy, you're way out now. Yeah, now you're in deep space. So, all right, Kim's News, and we have a big law and disorder as well. Some insane stories. Some are political, some less political, but you'll forgive us. I mean, it is heating up in the political season, the presidential race. I also have another piece of video I want to share with you. We've got a lot to do. So, Kim's News, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Sad news to report today regarding this mass shooting at a high school in Georgia. CNN reporting 4 people are dead, at least 30 injured after this shooting that unfolded just as classes got underway at Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia. It's about 50 miles northeast of Atlanta. The Barrow County Sheriff's Department says one person was taken into custody. They didn't confirm who that person was or what is going on with that, but this is a story we're following on the Mark Thompson Show today. Speaking of mass shootings, in Chicago, people on a train appeared to be sleeping as they were commuting. Now there's a Chicago man facing murder charges for allegedly shooting these 4 passengers on this commuter train. Investigators say 30-year-old Ronnie Davis was wearing a mask when he shot and killed 4 people aboard a Chicago Transit Authority Blue Line train early Monday. Yesterday, he was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Again, these people just dozing off on their commute. In San Francisco, police are trying to figure out, look at this. This is right at, near the Cliff House. Police are trying to figure out why these 2 cars went over a San Francisco cliff. They both veered off Point Lobos Avenue yesterday, crashed right through the fence at the Cliff House. One driver died after hitting the building and landing near the bottom. The other driver was treated for minor injuries. Fire officials say the former restaurant has some broken windows. There doesn't appear to be any major structural damage to the Cliff House. The Justice Department is accusing Russia now of trying to influence the 2024 presidential election. Attorney General Merrick Garland detailing the Russian campaign to interfere with the election, saying 2 Russian employees of Russian state media outlet RT have been charged with money laundering and violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So here we go again. Election day, just about 2 months away now, and we know that some voters in several states will be able to cast their ballots very soon. Early voting starts this month in Virginia, Minnesota, South Dakota, Vermont, Illinois, and in the swing state of Pennsylvania on September 16th. In October, residents in 9 more states can start to vote, including swing states Arizona and Ohio. Looks like we'll be able to hear more from the candidates before that voting begins, as Kamala Harris and Donald Trump debate on ABC next Tuesday in this presidential debate.
Pretty crazy. Crazy that, crazy that the election, it's a good thing, I think, can take place over such a long period of time. I love early voting. I like the more the people's voice is heard, the better. Already it's suppressed in so many ways in this country. The wild part is that so much new information can still be available to voters in the last couple of months. But that said, in this particular instance, I think the choice is so stark and so clear. I don't care what happens between now and the end of the year. I mean, I should say, and November. I mean, you could have any number of things happen. I mean, God forbid, the hot war spills over into a NATO country. The Middle East situation becomes even more inflamed than it is. These are things that will influence the election, but I'd suggest to you that the choice is so stark that those things shouldn't even influence the election. In no one of these various narratives or scenarios would you go, okay, now I'm going to jump over to the other person. I mean, and the other ticket and the other administration and the other group and other party. I just think the choice is so clear. So that's where I sit.
Did you hear that the story that Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter in Georgia, who is almost 100, told his family he's waiting. He's trying to live as long as he can so that he can cast his ballot for Kamala Harris. This makes early voting to me worthwhile.
Yeah. Good news. You can die sooner. 2 months earlier.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cast your ballot and check out. That's the way it goes.
Hey, I have good news and bad news. Yeah, you can cast it earlier. Bad news is you can also check out earlier, which is...
we know.
Who is having that conversation?
Look, Kim brought it up. It was not my fault. Go ahead.
The 17-year-old accused of shooting a San Francisco 49ers rookie is due in court today. He is facing a slew of charges, including attempted murder. The district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, says it'll take at least 2 weeks to decide if he's to be tried as an adult. Investigators believe the boy followed Ricky Pearsall last Saturday on Union Square and tried to rob him of his watch, ended up shooting him in the chest. The 23-year-old is doing well and visited with players this week. He is on the non-football injury list, but the team's general manager is confident that he will return this season. The Oakland Coliseum deal is done. The city and the Oakland Athletics each sold their half to a sports and entertainment group. Those agreements have now been finalized. The move came in time to avoid deep cuts in several areas, including to police and fire departments. The Oakland A's will temporarily move to Sacramento next year until their new stadium in Las Vegas is ready in 2028. The team's last home game at the Coliseum, September 26th. Sayonara, Coliseum.
Sad. It's absolutely sad.
A lot of history there, right?
Yeah, it really is.
The thieves in San Francisco are really not making it easier for people. They're copper wire thieves, and they're now putting drivers at risk, targeting streetlights, leaving more than 300 of them out of service in San Jose. A neighbor first noticed the problem over the weekend, saying ground covers were open with wires sticking out that had been cut. He called the fire department. No one realized the impact, though, until it got dark. With 18 lights out, just on one street alone. Richmond, the city of Richmond in the Bay Area, dealing with the same situation. The Contra Costa County DA's office hired a crime analyst to work on this with agencies across the Bay Area now. In the city of San Jose, they cleared out a large homeless encampment near the airport yesterday. Despite protests, there were about 100 homeless people warned last week that they'd need to leave by yesterday. Officials say campfires that the residents were using to keep themselves warm had smoke that posed a danger to planes at the nearby Mineta San Jose airport. California coming to the rescue of a small town in crisis. Rancho Palos Verdes declaring a local emergency last month because of homes shifting from a slow-moving landslide. Nearly 300 people are now living there without gas or electricity. They're about to get even more help thanks to Governor Gavin Newsom's state of emergency. He says storms this year that have made things worse, with the land sliding 9 to 12 inches each week. That's got to be scary to have your home
that's exactly
sliding
right.
around.
I'm so glad you had that stat because I couldn't believe it when I saw it. The ground underneath you is moving a foot a week. I mean, it's scary. This is a high-end area too. It would be like, I don't know, what's the equivalent in the Bay Area? Maybe like a Dublin or I don't know, like a high-end community, Mill Valley, one of those kinds of places where, you have some mix of housing, but generally it's pretty expensive to live there.
I mean, 9 to 12 inches each week. That's like you're in a constant state of earthquake, right?
Yeah.
With your house moving.
No, I mean, it's unlivable. That's what's happening. I mean, the state's coming in because you've got an absolute horror show. People cannot live there, red tagging homes.
Yeah. Governor Gavin Newsom also pushing a new bill to lower gas prices. He introduced it yesterday after the first version stalled. Lawmakers didn't take action by last weekend's deadline, so the governor called for a special session. The state assembly is on board. The state Senate still refuses to return this fall to consider the legislation. The governor wants to prevent gas shortages by making oil refineries keep a minimum fuel reserve when they go down for maintenance. He says California will not stand by as families get gouged. And lastly, I know you've been waiting for this one. Beetlejuice, set to give a boost to the box office. The sequel to the 1988 Tim Burton film is expected to make between $100 and $110 million in its first weekend in theaters. A lot of people want to see the Beetlejuice. If it hits or surpasses those projections, it could end up being one of the best September debuts ever.
Wow. People want what's old is new again.
Mm-hmm.
That's a classic. When was the first Beetlejuice?
88.
Man, I mean, look at that. Mm-hmm. Who's to say? That's why people that, they're tough on the older generation. They're not cool. They're not TikTokers.
No.
But the reality is, look at what's happening. They're going to drive a huge box office.
That's right.
Anyway.
Very popular.
Very cool.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Oh, the tea is so good. It's, the more you let it steep, the darker the tea gets, the more powerful the taste. I'm telling you, this vanilla iced tea from Coachella Valley Coffee is one of the best things I've ever had in my life.
No.
So good. Mango, another favorite, a new favorite of mine. Really good. What are you drinking over there?
Well, I'm drinking the Ocotillo espresso, but it's a French. Just because it says espresso doesn't mean you can't grind it for French press, which is what we've done today, and it's absolutely it's absolutely delicious. And you, as a viewer or listener, even if you're just stumbling through the show, I want you to check them out, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It is the best coffee I've ever had. And as you've just heard, insane teas as well. Many are saying those are the best teas they've ever had. It's really a remarkable place. And it's a boutique, very, what am I trying to say? Small business boutique is kind of why I like it. Because if you have questions or you just want to know more, it's there on their website, or you can even call them. I mean, it's all of the, and this is the way it really affects their product, all of the coffee, the beans are hand roasted. Everything is done with an attention that is associated with a smaller business. And that's why I love them. But I will say this, if it wasn't terrific, I wouldn't talk about how terrific it was. I'm never going to lie to you, okay, about a product like this. If I say it's terrific, it really is. So honestly, they would be great for all the reasons that they're great. But man, it is the coffee, it is the tea, it is the product that we really love. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Courtney is hooked on their cold brew. The cold brew is not just coffee on ice. It's got great tasting notes, and literally, it's close to addiction what Courtney feels about the cold brew.
Agreed.
And you can order that at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It'll come to you, and they have instructions how to make it. It's super easy. You just let it steep, I think, for 15 hours or something. And again, anything on the site at all, mark T at checkout for 10% off. It's super great. Be part of the greatness. Right on.
Julie writes, love the coffee voice, Mark Thompson, with heart eyes. And I agree. I was going to say something. I didn't know if it would be inappropriate, but when you use the voice and then you say Ocotillo Espresso.
Oh,
Kim, how are you?
It's pretty sexy the way you say it.
Ah, I see. I'm only reflecting the sexiness that comes to life when I have a sip of the, yes. The Ocotillo Espresso. Dark, rich. Dark as my cold heart. D. Baker likes you're absolutely right. D. Baker, where's the D. Baker tweet? Because that new coffee there, they sent during August, I should say, if you ordered something, they sent you a free sample of the
Café de
Olla. And D. Barker is right, man. It is prima. It is really good. It is sweet with a heavy note of cinnamon. But I mean, I'm telling you, it is. I call it a starter coffee because if you're not like super into the coffee jam, it will hook you. It's really great. Or it's a great dessert coffee. I really like that they created it down there. That's a complete creation of theirs. Before Ocotillo Espresso, I never realized how espresso could have so much flavor. Look at that. Uncle Russ. Look, a lot of love for Coachella Valley Coffee. So check them out. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Right on.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
By the way, somebody was telling me the other day on the radio in Los Angeles, they were saying, because I said right on, and they said, yeah, people don't really say right on anymore. And I think they don't. I thought right on is one of those that kind of made it through the decades.
Right on, man. Yeah.
Well, I know you say it, but that doesn't mean it's cool.
Kim, how are you?
I have a teenager, so I'm extra cool.
Does your teenager say right on?
No.
What?
Albert, I'm going to ask you. You're the young one here. Is right on done? Is right on?
I'm probably the wrong. I love saying random phrases, and that I don't see anything wrong with that. But I also don't understand what the youths are saying either.
Okay. So you feel like you've now crossed over, so you're no longer a good source for the youth.
Right on sounds cool.
It does. Cool. You think right on is still okay?
It's
all right.
different than what we normally hear, probably, or what I'd normally hear. So.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, Armando Correa says it still is in use, and Armando looks cool based on his whatever that's called.
his little profile pic.
Yeah, people still say right on. Says, okay, well, good. Because I naturally say it, and I want to keep saying it. But they were all over me for saying it. They said, oh, Mark, no one says that anymore. So anyway, all right.
No far out. Rock On apparently is
far
okay.
out, groovy. I get it. Those things are not happening anymore. So, all right.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him.
Right on, right on.
And now he's here.
Right on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Thank you so much. I did everything right and they indicted me. I misspoke. I stand corrected. My words upset so many people. My bad. I'm sorry.
Y'all can all go to hell and I'm going back to Texas.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
That was very inappropriate.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. I only like people that like me.
Put that coffee down.
There's never been anything like this.
Wow. A lot there. It is our show live right now. We're on 2 hours a day, live every day from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. For those of you in the Eastern time zone, for those of you in the West, where we are broiling right now, it is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. live every day. Most people take the show in on a recorded basis, delayed basis, here on YouTube, but also here across the major podcast platforms. Thank you for your support, however you find us. Again, we're crowd-funded. That's why we make a big deal out of super stickers and super chats, and also those who come in after hours and support us on YouTube. And Patreon and PayPal is how we really get supported month to month, because that lets us plan payroll and expenses and that sort of thing. So I got a lot to do still, and I want to do
The Mark Thompson Show.
I wanted to get to two things for sure. One is Jimmy McCain, John McCain's son, who has now, in a very high-profile way, changed his voter registration to Democrat and will be voting for Kamala Harris. Do you have the video? I ask you, Producer Albert. I did send it to you. And
I do.
Believe you.
Albert, thank you.
Let's take a look and a listen to John McCain's son, First Lieutenant Jimmy McCain.
Jim McCain. He is the youngest son of the late Republican Senator John McCain. He is also an Army intelligence officer who served previously as a U.S. Marine. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us why you called Trump's visit to Arlington a violation.
Thank you for having me, sir. Well, as you well know, sir, Arlington Cemetery is sacred to all people who have, all people who are members of the military, all people who have served in the uniform. It's a sacred area. There's 3 generations of McCains that are buried there. It's a violation because these rules are set in place. The people who are buried there don't have an opinion. The point of Arlington Cemetery is to go and show respect for the men and women who have given their lives to this country. When you make it political, you take away the respect of the people who are there.
So you're recently back from a 7-month deployment to Tower 22 in Jordan. That's near the border with Syria. 3 U.S. soldiers were killed there just this past January. This idea of a sacred space and grieving families, it's not just theoretical for you.
Yes, sir. I mean, I was not personally at Tower 22 when that attack happened, but after being directly on the ground right after, I understand the pain that we saw there, the young men and women who are serving there and what they went through. Once again, it's a solemn thing. You know, these young people are taking time out of their lives when they could be bettering themselves, you know, college, things like that. And they're joining the military because they feel it's the right thing. And the least we can do is when they're gone, if they, you know, when they're in Arlington, is to respect the rules and regulations that are in place, like not politicizing the fact that these men and women are there. Go, show respect. I understand that he was invited. Show respect and leave. It doesn't need to be videoed.
Now, there is a difference between video from Arlington showing up in campaign ads and going to actually expressly film at Arlington for the purpose of a campaign ad. And we should note, because I'm old enough, I remember in 1999 when your dad, Senator John McCain, had campaign video that showed him walking through the cemetery. But after it was pointed out that some people thought that it was inappropriate, your dad called it a very bad mistake and apologized for it. If Donald Trump apologized for it and called it a mistake, would he earn any points back with you? Again, I recognize it's not the exact same thing, but I'm just wondering, because this really seems to have bothered you that Mr. Trump did this.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing about, John McCain, you don't spend that long in politics without messing up once or twice. So, and the main point is that he pulled it down and he understood the solemn, sanctified nature of Arlington National Cemetery. So if Donald Trump pulled it down and apologized, I mean, it would be the right thing to do. But look at his history towards veterans. Look, at this point, I don't know what else he has to do. The answer is no.
Yeah. So, I mean, this has been, as you note, Donald Trump has said a lot of things that have offended people in the veterans community. It may have started actually when he said that your dad wasn't a war hero because he was captured. That was back in 2015. And then there are all the other things that he has said and done, including what his former Marine General and Chief of Staff John Kelly said, that he said behind closed doors, and suckers, losers, etc. You were a political independent for years. And you just recently registered as a Democrat. Why the switch, and how much of you moving not into the Republican Party, but starting as an independent and now moving to the Democratic Party, how much of that is because of Trump and his effect on the Republican Party and his attitude towards veterans?
I mean, to begin, what Trump said about my father is irreprehensible. I mean, it's I've never forgotten it. And, to remind everyone, John McCain was my father as well. And, he was the guy I went to when I skinned my knee, so to hear those things said about him, I can never forgive. The one thing about John McCain is that he cared about his country and he lived his life that way. So as we moved on, and I was gone for a year, so I didn't have a chance to change. But as soon as I was back, I see, I care about my family. I care about equal rights of everyone in this country. I care about all this. And, as much as I stayed as an independent, I decided that, it was time to move on and do what I believe in. The fact of the matter that he said it constantly is country first. You have to think about your country first. However that is, care about your country. Care about how making it better, not being divided, but being together as one to continue to be the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, just as a factual matter, I mean, your father, first of all, a lot of people are taken prisoner during war, and your father was offered early release because his father was an admiral during the Vietnam War. His grandfather was too, and he declined.
Yeah, that to me was one of the really heroic.
How prisoners are supposed to be released.
There was a lot of heroism around John McCain, but that was it. Okay, Albert, thank you. That was a lot from his son. I see this in the chat from who's homeboy who's always looking for trouble, Delwood Kelp, who says, can always count on fair reporting from CNN and their honorable anchors. Next on CNN, John McCain's third cousin chimes in. Well,
no, that's his son, and it is a story. It's important.
It's a story because Trump made a big deal out of going to Arlington, okay? So Trump, your boy, he made a big deal out of going there. If your boy, Trump, hadn't done that, then we wouldn't be necessarily focusing on John McCain, someone who did have distinguished service to this country. Now, the other thing that your boy did was he put down the service of John McCain. As I say, he was not only captured as a prisoner of war, but he refused early release, which was offered to him by his captors. He said, no, I'll go with all the rest of these guys. That's incredible courage. I don't think your boy, who is a bone spur man, is capable of that kind of thing. And again, I don't like to sit here and throw rhetorical Molotov cocktails at anyone. It's not really my style to call somebody names. But because I just took incoming fire from Delwood, I just throw that back at you, Delwood. Come on, dude. I mean, get your head straight around that. I thought his remarks were on some level predictable in terms of where he is as a person on the Trump Arlington Cemetery issue. But that said, his move to register as Democrat, that certainly would not have been something that I would have predicted. So I actually thought that was interesting there. Now, on your channel, Delwood, on your channel, Fox News channel, you actually, for all the kind of making fun of the objectivity of CNN, you literally had, and I had to watch this because it was on all the monitors yesterday at iHeartRadio, you have the anchors there calling Kamala Harris a commie. They literally did that. They call her a commie, all right? So if you want objectivity, I think you're much closer to objectivity on CNN than you are on Fox News Channel, which is, I know, your normal church of worship. The Rick says, nothing Trump does shocks me anymore, but the shamelessness of his supporters does. Yeah, it is bizarre that so many are willing to carry his water.
Yeah, the excuse is made. Incredible.
Yeah, big shout out, though. Thank you for the super chat for $10. I appreciate that. And Ray with a $20 toss to John Rothmann. Welcome back, John. We love our John Rothmann. We love our John Rothmann, he says.
Big shout out.
All right. Well, John will be back next week, and it sounds like John wants to do some other stuff with us, so that might happen also. Yeah. No Contendo
Big shout out.
Says Delwood doesn't put 45 put Eric Don Jr. on TV weekly. Yeah, those are his in part his chosen surrogates. I'd suggest now he has new surrogates, better surrogates. One would be Tulsi Gabbard. She was really a good surrogate unless you scratch the surface and pull the curtain back on Tulsi Gabbard. She sounds really good. And who's the other? Well, he's got a lot of actually fairly competent surrogates, but, both do. So
one thing about First Lieutenant McCain that we just watched, it's clear to me that he doesn't speak very often. He's not, he doesn't come off as media savvy. You could tell he's nervous, his words, he's tripped up with his words a little bit. And that to me says that this is so important to him, this issue of Arlington, this issue of service, this issue of disrespecting his father, that he's willing to come out and make this public statement.
I think that's a really good take. And I'll tell you something. His yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, sir. We could use a little bit more of that around this show, Albert.
Oh.
I'd like a little more yes, sir, no.
Albert, thank you.
You know what I'm talking about. Everybody just drags their ass in here at the last second and then just tries to shimmy it through.
Well,
that's absolutely not acceptable. I like a little yes, sir, no, sir. Now,
keep dreaming.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Albert,
Yes,
do
sir.
you have Law and Disorder ready to go, sir?
I do. Yes, sir. Yep. Ready.
Yes, thank you. You see, Kim Albert did it.
Yeah.
I don't see why you can't.
Albert,
do it.
thank you.
All right.
3 bags full,
Here it
friend.
is.
In the criminal justice system, the people, pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care, are represented by two separate yet equally important groups. A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news. These are their stories.
The estate of Isaac Hayes in court. They are victorious in the fight to stop Donald Trump from using one of the songs made by the brilliant Isaac Hayes. Isaac Hayes has passed away, but his court appearances are being carried on by his estate. Yesterday, a federal judge in Atlanta ruling that the Trump campaign has to stop playing Hold On, I'm Coming. An emergency injunction was filed, claiming that Trump had continued to use the song despite not having obtained a valid public performance license. So odd to think that the Trump people would do something like that without getting the official go-ahead to get it done. And usually they're so good at trying to work within the law, you know. But in this case, they just said full speed ahead.
I've never seen anything like it.
And they said in court, I do order, this is the court speaking, Judge Thomas Thrash Jr. I do
like that
order
name, Judge
Trump.
Thrash.
Yeah, that's
Really?
a pretty good name. I agree.
I'm sorry. What's your ruling, Judge Thrash?
I might
Can't
even
possibly
lose,
be good.
I might even lose the junior because it takes a little edge off of the thrash.
Uh-huh.
I do order Trump and his campaign to not use the song without proper license. The campaign has no interest in annoying or hurting anyone, said the Trump attorney. Following the ruling, Isaac Hayes' son, Isaac Hayes III, expressed his gratitude. We are very grateful and happy for the decision by Judge Thrash. I want this to serve as an opportunity for other artists to come forward if they don't want their music used by Donald Trump or other political entities. So the legal judgment is in.
More than 30 artists have come forward so far asking Trump not to use their music. Yeah.
You know, there was
including Celine Dion with the Titanic song.
Yeah, she came forward.
Yeah.
They really, they have trouble clearing music there in Trump rally land. The MAGA North Carolina gubernatorial candidate was apparently a regular at the porn shop, according to the employee. And Albert, that's not necessarily. But we, as you know on this show, have no problem with the porn shop. We have no problem with you being a regular there. We have no problem with whatever your jam is and whatever itch you need to scratch, as long as you're not harming anyone else. However, this particular Republican North Carolina gubernatorial candidate, this guy bought hundreds of bootleg porn videos and went to a porn shop nearly every day of the week in the 90s. Albert, according to the new report, his daily visits to the porn video shop extended into the early 2000s. This is why we mention this story. Not because there's anything wrong with going to the porn shop. Again, if that's your thing.
Yes, sir.
Robinson has run on his evangelical Christian views. He is an ultra MAGA guy. He's been strongly endorsed by Donald Trump. He is super, super straight. And his world of shaming the LGBTQ plus community, whom he once referred to as filth, his positions and hardline stances on everything from abortion to gay rights, as I say, have put him in a category of Puritanism, which seems not to be reflected by daily trips to the porn shop through the late 90s and early 2000s.
Come on.
He explained in a memoir, sorry, Kim, I just was going to mention that he explained in a 2022 memoir that he became a devout Christian in the 1980s, but that locking into his faith took longer than most. A young married father of two, when he was saved by Jesus, he told an audience at a Baptist church in 2021 that the devil doubled down in my life soon after.
There's never been anything like this.
It's
God
all the
told
devil's
me.
fault. Yep, the devil did it.
God told me what I was supposed to do, he says. As I was doing wrong, that voice was in the back of my head. Stop it, stop it, stop it. And yet I still continued in disobedience after being saved. And I'm not ashamed to say it. Both the porn stores, there were two of them, that he frequented, have since closed. I don't know if he still watches porn, said one of the former employees. But The
It
insistence
was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
He definitely was taking his jam to these porn shops on a regular basis.
I mean, do they not realize that if they're someone who's in the public eye, they are being seen at these places? You can't go out and say, porn is rotten and then go to the porn store and act like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does put you in a tough position, I will say that. But as I say, this guy, he is so evangelical about his views on, purity and Christianity. That's why we bring it up. Anna Sorokin, the fake heiress, will compete on Dancing with the Stars.
Oh my God.
That's the way they go now.
Look what we're celebrating.
Sure. Pass Sean Spicer in the hall. Maybe get him back on. She's in the middle of a deportation battle. She was the con artist who was convicted of swindling banks, hotels, and even friends in 2019. She built a reputation as a wealthy German heiress named Anna Delvey. That was her cover, She's described as the notorious ankle bracelet fashionista in the press release that was announcing that she'll be on Dancing with the Stars.
Seriously? I mean, this is what we're honoring? This is celebrity. You're a really good criminal. Come be on Dancing with the Stars.
We should just have her dance for her freedom. Dance for her freedom. Dance for citizenship. Dance for some rights.
Yeah, that's right. You want your freedom?
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It definitely raises the stakes. I'll say
Today on Jail or Dance.
Yeah. You need to bring on George Santos.
Hey, Mark, it's George Santos here.
Yeah, George Santos would be fun than Dancing with the Stars.
A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
So here is what, maybe you can check on it, Albert. I mean, I don't think it's unprecedented that they have people there who are like her. I mean, Anna Sorokin, she's fighting to stay in this country, and she's also involved in, she's had legal judgments against her, as we've said. She's literally wearing that ankle bracelet. But she started house arrest in October of 2022. But anyway, the deal is that I believe this forum has had others. I'm trying to think. Others who have sort of fallen into that category. So what made me think of it was when Kim said, what are they doing? What is this coming to? I'm thinking, I think it's not their first rodeo when it comes to having people on who might have a criminal record. But again, she'll be on with former NBA star Dwight Howard, actor Tori Spelling, Jen Tran, the Bachelorette lead, and I believe those are the ones that I see listed here. So
I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I mean, it's mostly, kind of lower level celebrities, maybe a few athletes, but it's not your whole claim to fame is your criminal history.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's infamy. So now she did start her house arrest in October of 2022. She's going to be, it's okay. They let her compete with the ankle bracelet, I guess.
They had Carol Baskin on of Tiger King fame, season 29. Sean Spicer. I'm just looking up just these random.
Yeah, those are people who had a little radioactivity around them. Sure.
Yes. Olivia Jade, who was part of the whole college admission scandal.
Yeah.
Lori Loughlin's daughter.
Yeah.
Hard to do those kicks with the ankle bracelet on. I mean, that's a workout.
I mean, that's another instance of dancing for her freedom that just proves the point that she is, and she has more obstacles to overcome.
Well, for it to truly be fair,
oh Lord,
all the contestants should have to wear ankle bracelets to really make it, and that's the way I feel it should be done. And I think that would add another element that has been absent from Dancing with the Stars. She has been under house arrest, as I mentioned, and it looks like she overstayed her visa. She's supposed to return to her native Germany. They did the Inventing Anna. I don't know if you saw it. I believe it was a series. I want to say it was on Netflix or, yeah. So anyway, she's doing the most American thing that you can do when you're trying to avoid prosecution. She's going to be on Dancing with the Stars. So many people became famous for bad things and were able to kind of segue into something different, she said. Yeah, look at the guy running for president. There have been 30
maybe a Kim Kardashian fan as well,
Oh, right. And she's controversial, right? But she's 33rd season of Dancing with the Stars. Wow.
Also on the list, Paula Dean, Tom DeLay. More.
Oh, right. Thank you. Those are far more accurate, at least in terms of being infamous. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they were famous for other reasons first, right? A politician, a chef, what have you. This woman, like her only thing, the only reason we know of her is because she swindled people.
That's true. And those other things you're talking about were really falls from grace, right? They had achieved a lot and then they fell into infamy, or they fell out of the high position in society they had, or whatever, in show business and politics, whatever. So that's a fair point. Paula Dean, yeah, butter, exactly. And finally, I'll just note it again, although we've already noted it on the show a couple of times, the 17-year-old suspect in the weekend shooting of San Francisco 49ers rookie wide receiver Ricky Pearsall is being charged with attempted murder. And Brooke Jenkins, the San Francisco DA, made that announcement. Pearsall, and again, it's remarkable because he's 23 years old, and Albert, who's the commissioner of sports on this show, told us that not only did he walk to the ambulance after being shot, he was shot in the chest.
Yeah.
But he was on the practice field, apparently, today. Isn't that what you said, Albert?
Yeah, today or yesterday. I'll try to find the clips, but he's running routes, and I think John Lynch, the general manager of the 49ers, said it's just miraculous that he's doing that already.
Really, really is. Wow.
Albert, thank you.
Anyway, that, my friends, is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Right on. I have in the last couple of minutes a couple of things that might be of interest. One thing is, I know, going to be of interest to all of the older boys and girls. Trevor in Hollywood, 6 days until Trump faces doom in the debate, he says. Wow, I guess Trevor is calling it in advance for Kamala Harris. 14 days until he faces doom in his sentencing. That is true. Trevor Starr in Hollywood keeping the Trump doom calendar. He says there are 6 days till the first doom, 14 days till the second doom. So well done, Trevor.
Big shout
Thank
out.
you for the love. He sent me, Trevor did, so many drops that I'm still wading through them. And I want to share them with the audience, but there are just so many of them that I have to.
Can we hear another random one?
I can try to find. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I don't know. Is this on right here? I don't know if this will even. I think I have to download it for them to play. That's a word. I mean, it's so many to download. But here, I'll try a few. I'll download a few things, and then you can decide. But I mean, there are so many. Let me just give you one more. Then I have a story for you. It's a lot of Trump, which I know some people hate. Okay, here is. Let me go to these and try to drag them all here. Didn't expect that. This is a.
It's just not acceptable that something like that could happen.
Yeah. No, this is the problem. It's going to coexist in there with a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, thanks, Kim. Nicely
No
done.
problem. Yeah,
and
that
can't
was
you
good.
just play something with the... I'm sorry. I don't want to let Kim down.
It's my favorite part of the show so far.
God, it's just brutal.
I mean, he goes to all the trouble to send you these drops, you know?
Right.
We filter through them and we see what we like, and then we'll add them in there.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't even know where some of this crap is coming from. So
Yeah.
Now what was I saying before I was so rudely interrupted? Yeah. I was saying that I have one story here before we leave that will be of interest probably to everybody, but certainly to some of the older boys and girls. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
A new study published in the journal Nature Aging has revealed something that I think we, as people who grow older in these bodies as Homo sapiens on this planet, notice. But until I read this piece, I didn't really have a coherent sense of it. And here's what it is. Scientists have found that the aging process happens in pronounced waves as opposed to a slow and steady climb. A team of Stanford scientists determined that age-related changes, including slowing metabolism, wrinkling skin, increased proneness to diseases, show significant peaks at two different points in your life. One is, and these are averages obviously, but age 44, and the second age is age 60. They're saying that those two ages are the ages on average when that process of aging all of a sudden seems to hit some accelerant and you get a bunch of things happening to you from the standpoint of your body, your mind, etc.
Yeah. You know those days when you wake up and you see a new wrinkle and you think, this must have been here. Why am I just noticing it now? Apparently, no. It just happens like that.
I always say to the young people, because as you know, the young people do look up to me and many of them come to me for advice and questions.
Sir, yes,
I always say to them, someday, you don't realize it. Enjoy what you have now because you're going to get out of bed and your knee is going to be shot. It's going to be like, I didn't do anything. I just slept. I got up and started my right knee. Just now it just can't take any weight. And guess what? You'll go to rehab. Your knee's not coming back. It's gone. And that's what's happening on the inside too. That's what I tell the young people. Somebody's got to knock down their sense of spirit and hope, Kim, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So back to the study. Changes at 44 and 60 on average, but again, in these waves of aging that you will experience. This is a Stanford research project. They can lead to weight gain or stronger effects from drinking alcohol. I definitely notice both. And sadly, it's the alcohol, which does give me more of a buzz than it used to, that also gives me more of a weight gain than it used to. So Dr. Michael Snyder, professor of genetics at Stanford University and senior author of this study, says people assume everybody's kind of aging gradually. It turns out that most changes are not linear. To offset the impact of these dramatic aging waves, this team of doctors and researchers suggest that people approach the milestones of 44 and 60 by exercising more often and adopting a healthier diet. They analyzed repeated collections of blood and stool samples. Stool samples, what are those again, Albert?
What?
That is your poop, sir.
Oh,
Yep.
Thank you very much, of course.
Albert, thank you.
All right. They analyzed blood and stool samples and oral, skin, and nasal swabs from healthy people between the ages of 25 and 75 across California over a period of almost 2 years. During the analysis, scientists noticed that 81% of the observed molecules, including proteins and RNA, changed in at least one wave of changes. The team ultimately concluded substantial dysregulation occurring at two major periods. Albert, Can you tell me what dysregulation means?
Albert, thank you.
No idea, sir. But I did want to circle back to what was the doctor's name in the study? Was it
the doctor's name in the study was Dr. Emil
Schaffhausen.
Yes, the third. Yeah, Dr. Emil Schaffhausen III was the lead.
I do believe it was Dr. Michael Snyder, as Michael Snyder's noting.
Michael Snyder is. You're right, and the spelling is exactly the same as Michael Snyder. Yeah.
That's when he's not watching movies. He's doing studies on aging. Yeah.
In between screenings of some Korean film with subtitles, he's looking over the data.
Checking stool samples.
Yeah. Computational biologist at Leibniz Institute on Aging in Germany.
It has the culture blaster given a whole new meaning.
Yeah, he's blasting different stuff.
Different cultures, yes.
Yes. Anyway, they noticed that these changes occurred to RNA and various building block proteins at 44 and at 60. In these waves, significant upticks. These studies, they say in Germany, looking at this report, this computational biologist at Leibniz Institute on Aging, which is in Germany, these studies probably align very well with the experiences we have ourselves or heard from others who perceive a sudden decline in physiological fitness. It is weird how now that we read this, it does land. I mean, it truly does seem as though it's like, yeah, I think in my life, I've experienced those waves. You know what I mean? Meaning that a cluster of stuff has happened, a cluster of aging-related stuff. People in their 40s, and then we'll wrap up, show significant changes in the number of molecules related to alcohol, caffeine, and lipid metabolism, as well as shifts in markers related to cardiovascular disease and skin and muscle aging. A similar but less pronounced wave of aging was noticed at age 60. And it's possible that some of these changes, they say, could be tied to lifestyle or behavioral factors that cluster at these age groups. Anyway, I went to the alcohol right away, but I've really backed off. That's been one of the things I've done. I've backed way off.
I think the study also said that your body reacts differently to different food as well. Like what you can eat, what your body can tolerate as far as your diet has changes as well.
That's right. That's Dr. McAllister is correct about that.
Yeah.
They talk about the fact that
I'm collaborating with Dr. Snyder on this,
and Dr. Emil Schaffhausen.
Yeah.
The Americans age 65 and older have to 90% possession of at least one chronic health condition, and nearly 2/3 of them suffer from 2 chronic illnesses, according to the CDC. So this is interesting, the science of aging. You have the boomers getting older. I wish there was more science of aging, actually. But the one thing I would say is, I would say 2 things. First of all, I've noticed it with the alcohol stuff. And they say in their study that one of the reasons that they think the alcohol has more of an effect on you as you get north of 44 is because of consumption that you've done through the years, and it's a stressful period of life over 44, meaning certain changes in your life are concurrent with the drinking now. So like that's a little tough to like, how do you separate the stressors, the external stressors from the drinking? So it's not a pure study, right? Like we know that stress can age you and can produce certain metabolic changes and biological changes. So, but it's nonetheless very interesting. So, anyway, all in all, they say the findings suggest individuals have to pay attention to their health in their 40s and 60s.
50s, don't worry about it. You're okay.
Yeah, you cruise through the 50s.
40s
that
and
could
60s,
look like
trouble.
Increasing exercise to protect your heart and maintain muscle mass, or decreasing alcohol consumption. Yeah, that's what I've done that. Anyway, we'll watch that for you. But I thought that was impressive and important. And
we
so
have processes and protocols and standards.
we do. And I wanted to bring that to light. So the light was brought. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, what do we have to do? I feel like we've done a lot today.
We've done a lot, and I think we've gotten through everything.
Wow. Have we really? All right. Well, I'm looking myself to see if there's anything, and I don't. Well, I know what that music means.
I can tell you this, not to end on a sad note, the gunman at Appalachia High School in Georgia believed to be 14 years old.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it.
14.
Kids and guns. It's just...
That's a freshman.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. Brutal. Cheryl says, I measure my alcohol. Yes, I'm good. That's my problem. I measure it too. That was a great show, sir, says Uncle Russ. We need a little more of Uncle Russ in, yeah, you're damn right. Yeah. And I like the yes, sir, no, sir that Albert has adopted from the McCain family. Good. After Party Live is next, and the great Shadow will take us out. So,
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow, it's Cats
Bye-bye.
and the Law. Till then, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.